Welcome, everybody. We're gonna, as Paul introduced, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers, so feel free to put something in the Q&A. I see there's one there, just somebody not paying attention to where they should put their name and information. So with that, welcome to an introductory for performing commercial inspections. Our goal for this 2-hour session is not to teach you how to do commercial inspections. Our goal is to tell you about commercial inspections and maybe get you really interested in them. Before we go too far, this is me. I'm the Director of Education for the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association. If you forget where I'm at, it's on my shirt. It's above me right here, and it's also here on my screen. Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association is akin to InterNACHI. We share the same board of directors, but we have a completely different mindset. We're to grow commercial inspections worldwide, where InterNACHI grows residential inspections. And so with that, our goal in this couple hours is to introduce you to commercial properties. We're going to talk about the ComSOP, which is the Commercial Standards of Practice, who can do them, and I'm going to specifically talk about Texas. A little bit of business practices, a little bit of report writing, and a little bit of sales and marketing as we go along. Not many people will be able to do all 6 of those. That's what the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association is really geared for. And that's why we're here, and to support all the inspectors that are our members, as well as potential members. So let's begin with just getting a simple definition out of the way. And I've gone through all of the states. There are 38 states in this country that have some form of regulation, whether it's licensure or just a regulatory body. And not a single one of them defines a commercial property inspection. They all do a very good job defining what a residential inspection is, but they don't define commercial very well. So we're going to use the definition that was created by InterNACHI years and years ago and has been adopted by the CCPIA. And that's the building structures and improvements located on a parcel of commercial real estate. These include structures such as buildings with residential units operated for profit, mixed-use buildings, strip malls, motels, factories, storage facilities, restaurants, and office buildings. So imagine you're doing an inspection in a resort area, and there's a house on the lake. The people that own that house might never, ever live there, permanently at least, but they rent it out, Airbnbs, Verbos, etc. Well, good news. That's a commercial building. I even bet they have a commercial insurance policy on it. I even bet it's listed on commercial websites. So if you're out there doing a general residential inspection on that property, you really need to be looking at it in a commercial point of view. Looking at things like life safety, for instance. How about the end of your street where there's a building that looks like a residence, but now it says State Farm or a nail tech or a salon? That's a commercial building. You might think it's a residence, but it's a commercial building. We'll also look at multifamily and commercial as well. They're the buildings that most akin to a commercial property. And once again, looking at state regulations, most state regulations say a residential inspection is for 4 or less dwelling units. Well, if it's for 4 or less dwelling units, then 5 or more would be commercial. And so that's really, as we're starting this conversation of commercial inspections, think about strongly what that definition is. And that's what we're going to focus on, at least in the next couple hours. So when we're focusing on commercial buildings, let's look at office buildings first and foremost. Office buildings could be the entire building, could be just a suite in the building. Office buildings could be 1, 2, 3, 4, infinite stories tall. If I was working in Chicago, the Willis Tower at 200 stories or whatever the height is, that's what we're talking about with an office building. Usually a wide open space. It's a space with high occupancy or high occupancy density. And so when we're looking at these properties, we've got a lot of fenestration. That's a commercial term for windows and doors. So we've got a lot of weatherproofing to look at. We've got a lot of structure to look at. We've got usually grounds and parking areas to look at. So an office space is really a nice, easy, smooth commercial type property inspection that a lot of commercial inspectors will look towards. We'll also look at medical as part of it. I can recall in my personal practice during the pandemic, the number one commercial space, if I was to coordinate my list by the amount of inspections, were dentist offices. The reason I was doing so many dentist offices is the CDC and the federal government was making some regulations on air quality and how you had to block off certain air streams between patients. So in those dental practices that had the wide open space, they were having to put up temporary plastic walls. Well, old-time dentists didn't want anything to do with that. And so they were selling practices right and left to newer dentists. And so when you think about these spaces, I'm just looking at the four walls. I don't really have a lot of care or a lot of need to discuss that dental equipment, those chairs, that sucking device, the drills, all that's beyond my scope. When you look at the image on the screen here, I'm actually doing an inspection of a pain clinic. And this is an operating room for that pain clinic. It's a sterile room. I talk to my client ahead of time. I'm not even supposed to go in this room. I open the door, take a photo, and I leave. Because at the end of the day, it's just a box. Whether it's being used for this type of medical or that type of medical or this type of procedure or that type of procedure, at the end of the day, I'm just looking at receptacles, running water on faucets on sinks, and verifying it's got some form of comfort in heat or cool. So medical is, again, a very common source of commercial inspections that you'll have an opportunity to inspect. But for a lot of commercial inspectors, the industrial condo is really your first foray into doing commercial inspections. In this image, you're seeing a typical steel constructed building. And this steel constructed building has a dozen different suites in it. Each suite, 1,500 to 2,000 square foot. Each suite's a different owner, or maybe a tenant, depends on how it's being parceled. Maybe it's a mechanic shop, a lawnmower, or a landscape company. Maybe it's a pool cleaning company, a pool supply company. Maybe it's a hobbyist. Whatever it is, it's about a 12 by 12 office. It's got a small restroom, a utility sink, a mezzanine above the office, a water heater, a furnace, an air conditioner, and in the back of the shop, a hanging furnace, and some form of electrical distribution. It is a really clear, easy commercial inspection. And for most of us just entering into the commercial world, it is a great gateway into performing commercial inspections. It's a great opportunity for newer inspectors to build confidence, to build inertia, and to even meet new referral partners and meet new referral friends. So industrial condos are an excellent inspection stream. Another great inspection stream could be a strip center. Whether you're doing this whole building or I'm just being asked to inspect the west side growler fill, whichever it is, these are on every block. Annually, the CCPIA puts out its market research. I usually produce this in January or early February. And we have a series called Building Your Business that we produce and distribute out to all of our members and available on our YouTube page. And this year's market analysis, the CBRE, the National Association of Realtors, and other sources that I used for this research all talked about the local neighborhood strip center as being a market leader in the 2024 real estate world, because the larger big box stores have their market share, and a lot of them are leaving the industry because of Amazon and other online retailers. But the local neighborhood strip centers are all being occupied. Whether it's your, in this instance, it's a childcare, it's a pizza, could be a nail salon, could be, in this case, tax. And if you're being called to inspect these, you could be the whole building, or you could be just one unit in that building. Both of them are really excellent commercial inspection opportunities, and understanding the nuances of those as well as the standards to inspect is really important. Warehouse, through the pandemic, even now, warehouse is still staying strong, but warehouse is an excellent type of inspection for inspectors because it's wide open space. When I look at warehouse, I don't look at square foot, I'm looking at cubic foot. And this could be a 20-foot or a 30-foot high clear ceiling. All of that is inspectable. But at the end of the day, you can move through these things pretty fast. If you think about your residential inspection, you walk into a room, you start testing receptacles, you look up at the light, you check out a window, you look at more receptacles, you look for water stains, and you leave the door. And you do that in 8 rooms or 12 rooms or however many rooms there are in that residence. Well, take a look at this space. This is probably 300,000 square foot. I'm not testing every receptacle. In fact, there's probably not as many receptacles as you think. There might be one every 30 foot or 40 foot of a wall. And there's certainly not any in the middle. But when you look at a warehouse space like this one, in commercial, we often talk about what we describe as the big 3. And those are the 3 most expensive items located in a commercial property. And when I think about the big 3, now I want you to sit there to yourselves. I can't see you, I can't hear you, I can't, and I'm not going to ask you to put it in the chat because that'll have our moderators' heads explode. But think about, what do you think are the big 3? Electric? No. It's roof, HVAC, and parking area. Those are the 3 most expensive items in a building. So when I just look at this image and I look at the amount of concrete, I'm looking at millions of dollars in concrete. So a lot of times when you look at a warehouse space like this, I might walk the parking area in the same amount of time it'll take me to walk the entire interior of the building. Think about that. And a shopping plaza could be the same way. So it's interesting. And the other thing we have is every one of these loading docks is part of our inspection. So if I've got a trucking terminal and there's 100 docks, then I've got 100 docks that I need to inspect. So each one of those will be interesting. But multifamily, for many of us, is a nice, common inspection. And it's probably the one that uses your same skill set the most. The skill set that you've been honing for years in residential translates best to multifamily. The difference is, instead of doing 4 or less units, we're doing 5 or more. Or we might be just doing the exteriors of a large condo complex or a large apartment complex. Maybe they don't want any of the interiors inspected. Regardless, what's interesting with a commercial inspection, unlike a residential, is you get to determine with your client the exact scope of every inspection individually. We'll get more to that in a moment. The next inspection I'd like to talk about is industrial. Industrial, different than warehouse. Where warehouse stores goods, industrial or manufacturing creates the goods. Really, the difference is what's going to be in your way. In warehousing, you're in their way when they're hustling and bustling and moving things around. But when you're looking at industrial, things are being created and you could have some dangerous items. So that's something we need to take a look at. If you've got a question, rather than raising your hand, please type it in the Q&A so we got a chance to see it. I don't have the means of calling on anybody. So when I'm looking at an industrial property, I'm actually going to ask what's in it. The most interesting industrial property I ever inspected was a dry cleaner. Now you're asking yourself, a dry cleaner, that doesn't sound very interesting. I go to one once a week and pick up my clothing. This dry cleaner had one client, Commonwealth Edison. This dry cleaner cleaned all of the soiled linen and garments from all of the nuclear power plants in Illinois. So when I walked in the door, they had to hang a dosimeter on my collar. And I wore a dosimeter through my entire inspection process. And then they had to measure it when I left to tell me how many rads or how much nuclear radiation I absorbed in that time period. That was the most interesting thing. I've done foundries, I've done smeltings, I've done all kinds of different manufacturing facilities. And so understanding the difference is still air. It is still a big open box. But the biggest difference is warehousing stores the goods and industrial creates the goods. You might not think about it very often, but houses of worship are an excellent subspecialty of the commercial world. If you talk to certain realtors, it's actually a subspecialty of the realtor market. There are realtors that only focus on houses of worship. And so as you're looking at these, you got to think about they do transact. I mean, in your hometowns where you're at, how many congregations meet at grade schools or middle schools or gymnasiums somewhere? They meet in those places because they're trying to grow their congregation, grow their war chest, so they have enough money to either buy an existing church or house of worship building or build their own. And what's interesting on houses of worship, and I laugh because you're never, ever going to do them alone. In every house of worship I've ever done, the pastor or the head of the church shows up and they're the happiest people in the world because they're getting a shiny new place to play. But who really runs the show are the committees. You've got the finance committee, maybe the buildings committee, and there'd be a half a dozen people that are following you around your inspection, asking you questions. And so houses of worship have always been a lot of fun for me, especially in an urban area where you got a lot of beautiful old buildings. But at the end of the day, they can be a little bit of a chore when you've got so many people hanging out with you and asking you all those wonderful questions that you told them you'd answer, and that's why they hired you. And then there's lodging. Many inspectors never even know that most of the lodging facilities that you stayed at or will stay at through the years, those are all franchises. They sell all the time. Typically, the building is owned by the franchisee, and then the franchisor helps them and participates in the branding. whether it's a Hilton property or Marriott property or an IHG property, it doesn't matter. This 3-story building, this lodging building, changes hands, and it can change hands quite routinely. And so you could be asked to inspect just the building. You could be asked to inspect every unit, a portion of the units, the common areas. I remember back in, because I'm old, in the late 90s, I got called by a residential client asking if I'd do motels, and I absolutely said yes. We'll inspect anything. Then he asked, well, can you do one this week? Absolutely, love to. And it turned out it was a Super 8 motel. And he was an engineer representing the buyers of the property. And it turned out I turned one Super 8 motel into 200 inspections because I turned them around quickly and accurately. And so lodging is an awesome inspection opportunity for you. So at the end of the day, my goal is to never say no. If somebody asks me to do inspection, I figure out a way to do it. So that's a little bit about the buildings. And I just hit a highlight of some of the bigger, we'll call commercial sets that you might find. But there's a lot of key differences that are going to occur as you grow your commercial career. The differences between residential inspections and commercial could be as wide as a mile. For instance, a residential inspection is largely a commodity, where a commercial inspection is a business transaction. It's pragmatic. Yet what I mean by that is, how many times have you sat there, if you're a residential inspector, and you've had a client call you in the middle of the night or on the weekend going, if I would have known my faucet dripped, I would have never bought this house. I need you to replace my faucet for $47.50. Now you stand back. On a commercial property, you're a contractor. Our clients are professionals. Our clients on a commercial property are intelligent human beings. They own and run businesses. They're not going to nickel and dime you. They understand your scope. They understand your standard. They understand your report. They know what they were purchasing. So they're typically not going to call you back on those items of passion. In fact, if you think about it, commercial clients don't sleep in their buildings. Where a residential client, they lay their head every night in that property you inspected. They raise their children in that property you inspected. Their personal wealth is tied to that property you inspected. Big difference. Residential inspections. Client will call you up. Today is Monday. Your phone's probably rang off the hook from people that found houses all weekend. And they've got this week. My goodness. They've got this week to get you in there to inspect that property. And if you didn't answer that phone right now, they went to the next inspector. Well, commercial inspections don't have that type of timeline. Their timeline is 30, 60, 90. I've even heard of 120-day due diligence period. Time for them to find out all the knowledge they can about that building. So you've got, as an inspector, a chance to breathe, not be so panicked, not have to answer your phone driving down the road. I promise you we'll talk about that soon. Our referral pool is completely different. Our potential referral pool are professionals. We're not going to have realtors showing up in tracksuits. Our referral pool are professional individuals that understand the buildings they're selling. In fact, according to market research from the National Association of Realtors, the average commercial inspector is the average commercial realtor is 13 plus years of experience. And they hold no less than a bachelor's degree. They're professionals. And we're also working with investors and business owners as well. And then lastly that I want to hit, and I'll move past this pretty quickly, is if you're in a marketplace that's fairly saturated with residential inspectors, a commercial inspector that's focusing on commercial has a little less competition because there's less commercial inspectors in the marketplace than there are residential inspectors in the marketplace. And so that can give you an opportunity to get a little bit more market leverage. But then if you think about it, I talked about how there's 38 states with licensure. None of them talk about commercial, means none of them have a commercial license requirement. That doesn't mean all of you inspectors in North Texas can't go to Oklahoma, all those in East Texas can't cross the border up to Arkansas or Louisiana, and you don't have to carry home inspectors licenses in those states. Same with going to New Mexico. So all of those states that are surrounding Texas, you can cross borders as a commercial inspector, which really makes it interesting. What allows us to cross borders, what allows us to maintain a good standard of care is what I'm going to use is the ComSOP, the Commercial Standards of Practice. It was originally written in the 1990s, early 2000s by InterNACHI. In 2018, 2019, when the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association was founded, we took the ComSOP and branded it upon ourselves. And it's set up in a lot of very interesting chapters. And those chapters are what I want to talk about next. So as we look at this ComSOP, our latest edition is the 2022 version. What the ComSOP is more than anything else, it is a true standards of practice. Other entities across the country have published other documents. Those documents are not a standard. Those documents are an inspection procedure and a report writing procedure, but not a standard. The ComSOP was written by inspectors, but it was written in the same vocabulary as the standards of practice for InterNACHI, so it was written on behalf of our clients. In other words, inspectors shall do this. Inspectors are not required to do that. Inspectors should do this. They should not do that. Really easy to follow. It's a clear inspection scope. It's absolutely understandable. It's very accessible. What I mean by that is it's completely royalty free. We produce this document and allow you or anybody to copy it, adopt it, and distribute it to their clients. But my favorite is every item of the ComSOP is actionable and executable with ease. I don't have to go through a lot of articulation to get to where I need to go in a building because of the way the standard of practice is written. So when looking at the ComSOP of the various sections, section 1 is our purpose, which states exactly what the best practices and the most reasonable approach to a commercial inspection should be. Section 2 lists all of the definitions and the primary definitions of those key elements that are located in a commercial property or what's around a commercial property. Section 3 is our use, where again, this is royalty free and available to all the members of the CCPIA and their clients. Section 4 talks about our inspection and the uncertainty and subjectivity of the report. We are not providing engineering or architectural services. There's no warranty or guarantee. And that according to the ComSOP, there are various levels of due diligence that I can establish. There's the key. establish between myself, the inspector, and my client. I get to set the level of inspection on every inspection. Now that's interesting. That's taking that idea of a residential inspection in that commodity and now making the commercial inspection a unique experience for our clients. Section 5 talks about research. And this is our first little snippet of an opportunity. I can create a different level of due diligence. In fact, I can, for a fee, if that's what I desire, get document procurement, going down to my county building and getting information about permits. I can review plans. I can conduct interviews if I so desired, the current building owners or tenants or maintenance people. I can do pre-inspection questionnaires. That's what I did back when I did all those lodging properties, is I sent a questionnaire to every motel manager. They filled it out before I even showed up. So when I showed up, I already knew the building. I can talk about even asking for previously generated reports. So as a spot in the ComSOP, we give an offering to those inspectors that want to, under Section 5, perform research. But really, my favorite part of the ComSOP is Section 6. Section 6 is really the meat and potatoes. It's the walkthrough survey. Walkthrough survey is what I said. It's a visual inspection. It clearly defines our objective. We're going to walk through this building and we're going to look at, and there's 13 sections to this: roof, exterior, basements, crawl spaces and structure, HVAC, plumbing, electric, fireplaces, decks, porches and patios, life safety, commercial kitchens. I'm sure I missed something in there, but those are the 13 sections that compile what's included in the ComSOP. So the question was, doesn't InterNACHI's commercial contract spell out some of these? Contract, yes. In fact, a lot of the original contract that was designated by InterNACHI has translated over and been rebranded into the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association's information. But it stops. Those courses that are available through InterNACHI, I believe there's 3 true commercial courses. They really stop short of the depth that we're providing. But thank you for the question. Section 7 talks about the guidelines of creating a report. How a report could be laid out. As an association, we don't mandate a reporting system or reporting style. What we've set up in the ComSOP under Section 7 is the layout of what a really good report should look like. Who was there, state of the property, etc. And what the ComSOP states is you're not required to produce a cost to cure. What a cost to cure is, if you've not heard of that, is an opportunity for you to go through your inspection report and assign a dollar value to every item you found. And that's important in commercial properties. There are some clients that are looking for that. There are other clients, they don't care. In fact, they understand that you're a generalist, and what they want you to do is tell them what you see, and then they'll go out and they'll solicit their own contractors to determine the cost. Because at the end of the day, when you're doing a cost to cure for a commercial client, you're probably going to be lucky to be within 20% of actual. They'll still go out and have to do specifications and find the exact numbers. So anything you're going to be doing is an approximation. But it's certainly a good, viable ancillary stream. Or there are some inspectors, they actually use cost to cure as part of their sales proposition because other inspectors might not provide it But if you do, then you're separating yourself from other inspectors. We do offer cost to cure courses that help you devise a strategy and creating a cost to cure analysis on commercial properties. Section 8 deals with our limitations, exceptions, and exclusions. If you read Section 8, if it really takes that Section 6, the walkthrough survey, and deep dives it into a clear point of view. For instance, in Section 8, it says that you're not to inspect or perform any action that requires specialized knowledge and specialized experience. So we're not testing and operating the load levelers that might be on a loading dock because that takes specialized knowledge and specialized experience. We're not removing the screws from a dead front panel on a commercial electric distribution in a building. We're not inserting any tools or probes. So all of these help us. In fact, when you really stand back and look at all of our standards, we don't walk any sloped roofs as part of the standard. We only access roofs that have a permanent means of access. So if it does not have a built-in ladder, I don't have to go up there. I don't have to carry a ladder with me. I can choose to, but within the standard, I don't have to. 9, like any other association, we do have our ethics, and they're strong professional standard. And within our membership, if you're going to be a member, then we're going to ask you to understand and abide by our ethics. So that brings us to this question. Who can do them? I kind of let the cat out of the bag a moment ago, but truly anybody can do commercial property inspections. Oh, this moved on me. I'm sorry. I know in Texas, you have 3 levels of licensure: the apprentice, the real estate inspector, and the professional real estate inspector. If you look at the text at the TREC standard, it really says that anybody who is a professional real estate inspector has the ability to work alone and inspect any size property. So my advice to anybody on this webinar that is considering getting into commercial inspections, then my advice is to make sure if you're going to do commercial property inspections, that you are a professional real estate inspector licensed by TREC and not an apprentice or not just a real estate inspector. That's what I've gathered from reading all of the TREC rules and regulations. I encourage you to look and research prior to beginning as well. So again, when I look at the TREC in 535.227, these standards define a minimum requirement for real estate inspection conducted on 1 to 4 family units that are substantially completed. Substantially completed means a stage of construction when the new building, addition, improvements, or alteration to an existing building can be occupied or used for its service or purpose. So again, they're talking about a 1 to 4 dwelling. They're not talking about a 5 or more, and they're not talking about the industrial space down the road. But in my experience of going around the country discussing commercial inspections, in those states with licensure, it is strongly encouraged that you research it and have the highest possible licensure possible for residential prior to doing commercial. But that doesn't mean that you have to have a license. There's been, in this state, in this particular case, nothing here that says I have to have a license to do a 5-unit building. I have to have a license, but I'm just hedging our bets, waiting for general counsel to say, and general counsel would be somebody from TREC to say, oh no, we want this. But what I can assure you is the courses I teach at for TREC are all licensed. So the question just came up of what's the difference between the ComSOP and the ASTM? It's monstrous. ComSOP is a standard. The ASTM is a procedure. It's a procedure on how to do inspection, but not a standard to provide an inspection. The challenge is the ASTM has been around for 50 years. And so it's got a benchmark and it's got a place that lives in the engineering world. We're not in the engineering world. And so if you really stand back and look at the two, the ComSOP is truly a standard of practice for providing commercial inspections, where the ASTM is not a standard. It is a procedure of writing an inspection report and a procedure of how to complete certain items of an inspection. We'll get into classes in a moment for the other question. The question was what other classes are available? We'll have that before this session's out. So now, let me hit too fast. So now when we start taking a look at what the Certified Commercial Property Inspection Association, Inspectors Association is all about. We have a lot of fantastic resources we've created. These include articles, videos, documents, marketing help, success tools, image gallery, news, and then we have an online store. Within our videos, we've created dozens of short and long form videos to help you through the entire commercial inspection process, from bidding a job, determining fees, all the way up through the performance. And what's nice in our website, they're searchable documents. You have the ability to go to videos, search, and come up with the video you're looking for. I always say that you can watch them in the car before you jump out of your vehicle and start the inspection, and you get to be knowledgeable. So let's look at the history of why not us in commercial. Because remember, this is an introductory. My goal is to let you know about commercial inspections, not to teach you how to do it. So historically, on commercial buildings, they've been inspected by engineers and architects. And like I say, historically, they've used that ASTM standard or ASTM 2018 document that they call a standard. And in doing that, it's really being driven by large brokerage houses, due diligence firms, and referral sources like realtors that don't understand we're here. But why not us? See, engineers, the engineers that I know, they're usually specialists. They're subspecialists in a specific discipline. That discipline could be electric or mechanical or civil, but maybe they don't know how everything reacts. And so when you think about having an inspection performed by an engineer, they're managers. They'll bring in their own specialty consultants. And at the end of the day, that inspection report is going to be hundreds of pages long, and most of it's about their experience. But when you think about us as professional inspectors, we've been so trained to understand how the building is constructed of systems, that a roof system interacts with the interior system through leakage, and the interior system reacts to the influences of structure. And the HVAC system has to rely on the electrical system, and the electrical system has to rely on other certain things. And we understand the methodology of taking buildings apart and talking to our clients in a professional manner, because we have to relay complex items to somebody that does not understand those complex items, but we have to do it in a simple language. And then on top of it, we know how to write inspection reports. We know how to take the information that we gather through our eyes and our cameras and place that on paper in a clear, intelligent manner. So why not us? When I go back and I think of our success tools with the CCPIA, we have devised in most systems true checklists and field notes for inspectors to use. We've got a deep mentoring program that's got a half a dozen quality, experienced commercial inspectors across the country, ready, willing, and able to help everybody individually through the process of building your business. We have a good commercial glossary. We have fillable proposal and fee calculators for both residential style multifamily units as well as industrial units. We have image galleries so that you can see what things were supposed to be instead of what you really see. And then we've created some very good custom marketing videos that our members get to use for free. So we've kind of talked about the beginning and a little bit about what is a commercial inspection. So let's kind of shift our brain a second. And let's start thinking about business. Because at the end of the day, and I say that a lot, but in this process of going into commercial, it uses a different brain set. It has a different skill set. And let's talk about those business practices, at least the ones that we have the time for today. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about insurance. We know that as a professional inspector, you carry insurance. You'll carry general liability or E&O insurance, and I'm positive you have it. But commercial insurance is a little different. In fact, again, is a rhetorical question that I want you to think about in your head. Have you ever gotten a phone call from a client? Maybe they're not even a client yet. Maybe they're just calling you and asking you for a quote. And I want your insurance too. And I bet you, with the amount of people in this room, some of you have said, I don't know that I want to work with them. They're going to ask for my insurance before I've even started the inspection. That means they're probably going to sue me anyway. And you're going to, I'm busy. It's $6 million. I don't know. You're going to figure out a way to not exclude them, but exclude them. Well, in commercial inspections, well over half the inspections you perform, your clients are going to ask you for your insurance policy and most likely want to be listed on your policy as an also insured, whether it's your client or whether it's the building owner presently. So having a relationship with your insurance carrier is critical because you need to be able to produce those documents quickly. Also, not every insurance carrier inspects or covers for every type of inspection you'll be asked to inspect. There are some carriers that won't let you do medical or daycare or commercial kitchens or hospitality. They'll have some form of caveat in your insurance rider that doesn't allow that. So shop. Understand when you're going to go into commercial inspections if you've got the proper insurance. Maybe you don't have high enough limits for certain properties. What if you get asked to do a 300,000 square foot building that just one of their HVAC units on the roof is $500,000 and you only carry a $500,000 policy? Is that enough insurance? I don't know. These are questions between you and your insurance carrier. Also, you got to think about workers' comp if you've got employees with you, and disability, because you could get hurt on any building. You get hurt on commercial, you get hurt on residential. But having the proper insurance is important. And I can tell you that the InterNACHI policy through Elite NGA does understand the ComSOP and will cover you for those items within the ComSOP. So take a look at your insurance, do a good audit, talk to the carriers. One of the things I would suggest, because most of the carriers are going to be present at the Pro Convention. If you're going to be at the Pro Convention in October in 2024, talk to the carriers, ask them about their commercial, see what they have to say. Other business practice concerns I think we should talk about are project size. Every person in this webinar has a comfort zone. And that's size. How big do you want to work? I know many commercial inspectors, many members of our association that don't do commercial but will do multifamily because they're comfortable with multifamily. I know others, they say, well, I will do it here, but I won't go past. Me personally, my cutoff was always 4 stories. I won't do a building higher than 4 stories alone. I have to have an engineer or an architect that specifically understands the structural elements of those buildings, because the higher I go, the more the building can move. And I need to be prepared for something like that. And that's where that engineer or the architect will be there. And I've done many buildings that are in excess of 30 stories that I've had to bring those along. But that was my comfort zone. My other comfort zone is, will I work alone or will I bring other inspectors? I mean, I always ran a multi-inspector firm. And so I had 5 commercial inspectors that only did commercial inspections all day long. So I always had an opportunity for help. But some of you might work alone. What's really nice about commercial inspections is I can go bring colleagues with me, a friend, and I can bring them in and I can do a 1099 with them. And the reason it's so fluid and easy, it's a one-off. And in fact, maybe they don't do commercial at all, but they're really good inspectors, and what you're looking at is help. They're not your competition. And so bringing somebody along to do those other tasks, and you can assign them to, provides you an opportunity to bring contracted inspectors, or in this case, employees. The largest job I ever did was a high school, and I had 9 inspectors with me. But I had 9 inspectors with me because we did this entire high school campus in one day. And we were able to do that in one 8-hour inspection day, do the entire building, and fulfill my clients' needs. So that's an idea. Using experts is a very good way of tackling complex projects. What's nice is I can bring that specialty consultant, the roofer, the electrician, the plumber, the HVAC, the commercial pool technician, any subset I want, and I can bring them along with me. And all that does is enhances my offering to my clients. Other business concerns, I talked about moving state lines. If I've got to travel, then I got to make sure the costs are worth it. I have a member that called me a few months ago and said that he was going to do lodging properties for an investment group, and he had a dozen of them to do across the country. He was going to bid these on the time on the project, but then his travel was a direct expense. So that wasn't coming out of his pocket. So he was able to do, and it's all a conversation between you and your client and setting up the expectations. And then lastly, location. If you work in an urban area, we know that there are areas that aren't as safe as other areas. Maybe it's not even in the urban area. Maybe it's even in the rural areas that aren't as safe as others. And so other business concerns I have is places I'm comfortable inspecting and places I'm not comfortable inspecting, or places I'm comfortable inspecting if I've got security with me. I have brought security on inspections before because I was not comfortable leaving my vehicle parked in front of the building. So these are all business concerns. And if you look at each one of these down the list, they all affect one thing. And what is that? That's my fee. And so I'm able to take each of these into my fee considerations. in talking about fee considerations, this is really our conversation with our client and the uniqueness and general dynamic difference there is between residential and commercial inspections. To help us look at these differences and these dynamics in a graphical point of view, we've created a roadmap. A roadmap, like you'd imagine driving in your car, produces some form of directional means of travel. And along the roadmap, I've got stoplights and green lights. A stoplight is a, whoa, let's do something. We have an action to complete before we get a green light and can move forward. So within this roadmap, I've got 6 key spots. In my 6 key spots, I have a call sheet, a reaffirming inquiry, preliminary research, drafting my fee, the interview, and the proposal. When I do all 6 of these properly, then I have the opportunity to make sure I've made myself as eminently successful as I can. So let's look at this a little closer. What to do when the phone call rings? When the phone call rings, I fill out a call sheet. When the phone call rings on a residential inspection, you can pretty much spit out or tell your client what the fee is based on, it's a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-story home, 2-car garage, middle of Dallas. There it is. You got it. But commercial is a lot more dynamic. When the phone call rings on a commercial inspection, I want to find out who the client is, what's their contact information, email address, phone number, property address. Have they ever had an inspection before? Or what is the use of the building? Is the building being changed? And any referral sources that they might have had that found me? And lastly, what's their time frame? Then I will reaffirm that inquiry with my client, and I'll go back to them and I'll say, thank you for calling. I need to do research on this property. I will be back in touch with you within 24 hours. Is that okay? See, if they need it immediately, they're probably not understanding their own process. Because remember, they got 30, 60, 90 days. They don't have to have this done by Wednesday afternoon. And so this gives me this opportunity to look at this building intelligently with all of the resources. So I reaffirm and I breathe. So again, I'm going to use a call sheet. Client's address of the property, their name, their contact, special requests, agent contact if they had it, and then I'm going to do my research. My research is simple. I mean, I love technology now. In the old days, I had to drive by all the commercial buildings I inspected and look at them and feel them and gauge my time and guess what's inside. Now I can use resources like the loopnet.com, the MLS, Google. And then once I've done my research, I'm getting ready to call my client back. But I haven't called them back yet. Before I call my client back, I need to develop some form of fee draft. I've done my research. I've looked at the building. I've looked at my access points because I can see ladders or holes in the roof. I've counted the HVAC systems that might be present on the roof. I've read the size of the electric because that's probably being listed on the internet. And I've done all those important things. And now I can start to develop a price. Not as simple as it sounds. Last thing I want to do is sit here in a room of inspectors and tell you how to charge. A, that's illegal, and B, every inspector on this call is an individual who has their own set parameters. But what I'd like to talk about are 4 really good basic pricing models that are effective. One is a percentage of sale method. The other is a cost per square foot. Another is a flat fee. And lastly, it's a combination of hourly and square foot assembled into some form of metrics. So before you can really come up with a fee structure, you really need to have a firm grasp on yourself. What I mean by that is, how fast can you inspect a building? What's your efficiency? You know, how do you maneuver through the building? What are you comfortable with? Will you do your inspection alone? Bringing experts? As I said, are you bringing a heating contractor? Are you bringing a roofer? What are they going to do specifically? What do they charge? Will you bring employees or contractors? I would bet if I had a job in Houston, and I called one of you that lives in Houston and said, "Hey, I've got a commercial inspection on Wednesday. If I need some help, can I pay you $1,000 for your day?" You'll probably jump on it and want to give me a help. So that's what we're talking about. Bringing employees, or am I bringing contracted inspectors? Where are my insurance limitations? Do I got to buy special insurance for this inspection? Am I covered? If I'm covered, I can move on. If I'm not covered, do I call them and ask for special coverage? But probably the most important thing you can do before you've even thought about your pricing is understand your marketplace. Texas is huge. I was lucky enough to drive all the way across Texas in 21 because my daughter moved to Tucson, and I decided on my way back to where we lived, I'm gonna transverse the entire state of Texas, and it was wonderful, but it was long, and I think I had to sleep 3 times. Your market analysis has to be completed. You have to understand what your other colleagues are doing in your general market area. Now, to help you, we've established some really good spreadsheets to keep you on point so that you can call your colleagues, competition, your colleagues in the marketplace. Ask them. Do mystery shopping. Every big company in the world does mystery shopping. How does McDonald's know what to charge for a hamburger if they don't already know what Burger King and Hardee's and Carl's Jr. and anybody else sells their hamburgers for? Mystery shopping is important. So calling up local inspectors that are doing commercial and residential, saying they're doing commercial in your marketplace, will let you know and gauge where you want to establish your fees. And you're going to do that wherever you want to. If you've sat in one of my classes, I always talk about a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being the cheapest, 5 being the most expensive. If you start out your inspection career as the cheapest, every time somebody new comes in the market and is cheaper than you, you have to race them to become lower. And so you'll both race each other out of business. And if you're the most expensive, which is fine, that's an excellent place to be, you're probably not going to be as engaged or get as much work as if you were a nice 2, 3, 3.5, 4 in my 5 scale, where there's some competitive nature to your inspection. And your wins, I call them wins, your successful booking and inspection will rely on your sales prowess and your convictions rather than your pricing being the cheapest or somebody looking for the most expensive. And then lastly, things to consider for pricing is, do you have any special travel or other potential expenses? Again, those potential expenses could be you're bringing in your specialty consultants that you have to pay, or maybe you have laboratory fees if you're doing other laboratory analysis, or whatever those expenses are. Those you have to understand and be ready for before you start developing your pricing. Others and other factors to consider, what's the project look like? Again, during the research phase, look at every building. And that's the benefit of commercial over residential, is I've got that time, that 24-hour period to go, oh, yeah. So I see this building and I can spin it around on the internet searches and I can see my ladder for my access point. I see that it's an industrial building. I see that it's changing its use. I see that there's parking, not only for myself, but in parking I might have to inspect. The memory of parking that best hits my head is I had a member call me 2 years ago. And he said, Rob, I'm so excited because this is what we do for our members. Rob, I'm so excited. I've got this commercial project. I don't know how to bid it or propose it. I said, great, let's take a look at it. It's a shopping center, almost a 750,000 square foot shopping plaza. And I said to him, I said, oh, this is a great building. Look at all this parking. It'd probably take one inspector, one complete 8-hour day just to inspect the parking. He says, what do you mean? It's parking. Because he's thinking in the mindset that it's a driveway in a residential property versus the parking area of a large commercial property. Well, he didn't go much further than that. He realized he wasn't ready. And he had already signed, he that night signed up for the very next 3-day course class that we offered. And it was funny. He sat right in the front row. He says, Rob, do you remember me? I didn't do that job. Because when you told me that the parking lot was going to take one complete day, I wasn't ready. But this parking could also be for your vehicle. Do I have gate parking? Do I have accessible parking? Do I have to carry my tools for 3 blocks? Again, commercial properties do not have to be done instantly. They're not in an emergency. You have time to research, understand the property, develop a fee long before you call your clients back. What I want to do, I'm going to go back a couple of slides real quick. And I want to talk about these pricing methods a little bit more in depth, because in my mind, I don't think I hit them hard enough for us. When I start thinking about percentage of sale method, I've only used that twice in 34 years of doing inspections. They were for enormous projects. One was in Louisiana, and it was for a shopping center that was almost 2 million square foot. We were there for 6 months. And that project was a $45 million transaction, and we were at around 1 to 2%. But in that, it took us 6 months to inspect it. We had contractors there every day. We had plans to review. All of that took time. So I would limit that to very specialized projects. Cost per square foot is a nice, easy method. I charge X amount of dollars or X amount of cents for every square foot of the building. Whether it's an office space or a warehouse space, I might even change that up. But a square foot model would work, especially if you know the square footage. A flat fee model is a good model to use on similar buildings that are always in your area. Oh yeah, I charge X. They could also be buildings that are smaller in nature. Maybe you pick a number. Maybe it's under 2,000 square foot. Maybe it's under 1,000 square foot. That flat fee method is probably a project that is not going to take you more than a half a day. That includes writing the report. Probably a project where you're just getting started came from a residential referral source or friend of a residential referral source. And that's a method that helps you get traction in the marketplace, gets you confidence to move through a building. So don't discount the opportunity to create your flat fee. This is what it costs me to leave my building, my house, get in my truck, drive to the property, do the inspection, produce a report, show a profit. And this is what it is. But again, for us, I love the hourly square foot method because A, I know how fast I can move through a building. Huh? Yeah, I do. I know and I'm confident that I can inspect an office space with about 3,500 feet per hour. And I know I can do a warehouse space or an open space about 4,500 feet per hour. So in using this type of method, if I've got a 35,000 square foot office space, I take 35,000 divided by 3,500, that's 10 hours. That's 10 hours of inspection. So that could be 1.5 days, and that includes writing my report. So when I'm developing this, then I got to understand what I charge per hour and then just build a model coming off of that. We have resources that'll help you through that process, as well as an online course that helps you with fees and proposals. If you're going to bring experts, choose them wisely. What I mean by that is make sure they're intelligent in what they do, that they are experts. Have their credentials and know them. So get referrals from other people. Yeah, this company really knows roofs well, or this company is really good at electric. Have an agreement between you and them. It's not the agreement between you and your client. We're already going to have that. This agreement is between you and your expert so that you can set that stage. Make sure that you have their insurance and audit that annually. Now, I know a lot of inspectors, myself being one, especially when I was just getting started, I brought experts with me on a lot of inspections. And why I brought them? Knowledge. I acted like the fourth grader. What you doing? What's that? What's that do? How's that work? How would I look at that? Is that wrong? And because I'm paying them to help my clients, why not get knowledge? It's just brilliant. So it's a good opportunity for you to provide an increased level of service, increase my base, and then I get to spread my load around and then spread my load across that inspection so that maybe there's a whole section I don't have to do. And then lastly, which we're going to get to in a moment within the roadmap, which is the interview process, I'm meeting the needs of my client. My client expressed to me that they are most concerned with X. Okay, good. If you're most concerned with X, then let me be your resource to assuage your concern with X and make you happy. How did they go wrong? How did they say no to you? They said they were upset or concerned. You fixed it. It's perfect. Whenever you bring a specialty consultant or an expert with you, there's 3 ways you can deal with their information. 1, you can summarize their reports. 2, you can include their reports as an addendum. Me, I do a combination of. Most of my experts don't speak inspector. They speak their specialty. So they're an electrician. So they're going to speak electrical. And that will probably confuse my clients. So if I took their report that they gave me, read it, digested it, understood it, and then placed it into my reporting system in a usable language with the last words were see addendum for details, then that gives my clients all that information, but also in a layman's vernacular. So it's the best of every world. We'll go through all those pricing models once again and hone them in. Like I said, very large projects are the percentage of sale. Imagine at 17 million, 1.5% to 2% could be anywhere between 85 and 340,000. The cost per square footage, which we said was clean. You could also do a front door method when you're dealing with multifamily and per every front door of every apartment. But what's nice again was cost per square footage. It really transcends across all the different sectors and sizes of the building. When I did, and I put this on here because I recalled one time it was a 200,000 square foot building. In this particular case, it was being converted from a steel manufacturer to a pallet manufacturer. And I put a bid for that inspection at 3 cents a foot. At 3 cents, I was $57.75. And I lost the job. But I wasn't going to settle. I went to my client and said, how about 2 cents? 1 penny. 1 penny. I got the job at $4,000. $1,775 is the difference between 1 penny on that project. But what's interesting on it is it was still a one-day inspection. I still got there, did the inspection, drove back to my office, wrote the report, and distributed the report. So I was happy with $4,000 in one day, an 8-hour workday. I'd been happier at $57.75, but at $4,000, I'm still profitable, I'm still engaged, and I still have a happy client that will see my work and tell others that they were satisfied with the commercial inspection. So I guess the best moral I can tell you on this is if you establish a fee and you present it to your client, be ready to adjust it to not lose the work. Again, that flat fee is good for getting the word out, getting to build your confidence, and getting to know what you are in your marketplace. Multifamily is really fun. If you're going to do multifamily, you're probably going to develop a cost per unit, per number of buildings in a complex, the complexity or the type of the building, the systems and quantities that might be present. In fact, when I'm in the large urban area, if I'm dealing with a building that has HVAC in each unit, that's a different fee than if I'm dealing with a general HVAC unit in a large mechanical room that distributes to the units. So one has, if it's a 13-unit building, I've got 13 HVAC elements versus another 13-unit building where I have one and it distributes its HVAC. Inspect your resources. And remember, if I'm charging per front door, I could also charge for those common areas, the parking lot, the exterior, the roof, the attic, those structure, those common areas. That could be a flat fee, and then I would build off of that. I know it sounds confusing, but I can assure you that we have resources that will walk you through each element of that process and help you devise a fee structure that works best for you and your company. So I've done that. I took my call sheet. I reaffirmed my call. Now, when I reaffirm that call to my client, that's not only my staff or myself going, thank you again, we're going to do research. but I'm also going to send my client either a quick email or a quick voicemail thanking them for their inquiry and telling them that I am in possession of that inquiry call sheet, or I could even build it into my website as a proposal intake form or job intake form. I'm going to thank them. So what I've done so far is I've provided my client with two different, what we'll call sales touches. One sales touch, they called my company. Two sales touch, I'm telling them, thank you for calling my company. Now I'm ready for my third sales touch. And that sales touch is me calling the client back after I've drafted an inspection fee. Key is draft. So here we go. We're right here and calling the client back. Let's see if I can. When I call, we're hitting buttons too fast. So when I call the client back in this stage right here, I am literally setting the first conversation between me and my client. That's if I've had either my call center, a proposal intake form, or my call team answer the phone. When I call them back, this is sales. I'm building a rapport. I'm prioritizing the relationship between me and my potential client. I am going to encourage them to talk. So what do? Oh, you build airplane hinges. That is excellent. When you build airplane hinges, does your building require anything special? Yes, it requires a high amount of electricity. Excellent. Are there concerns in this building? Yes, I'm concerned with. It's an interview. So you have to have a soft skill. You have to have an ability to have a dialogue with somebody that you've never met. But you're prioritizing this relationship to the point that if they give you 7 things that they're concerned with, and then you can go back to them and say, oh, and you went through all 7 with a positive, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, that's what I do. I'm going to bring a specialty consultant to make sure that we address that. And you've gone through all of that. What's left for the client? They just got to say yes, because they've told you everything they need. And you've said yes to everything that they need. That is the key to this dialogue. So you're going to learn about them. How'd they find you? That helps your marketing. Learn about the building. What are their intentions? What are their expectations? I like to know what their price point is. I'm going to come right out and say, now, do you have an expectation of what a commercial inspection fee is going to entail? Now, by knowing that, what if they come back and say $575 and you were $5,775? Say, well, you're going to have to figure out a language point. But in my language point is, so the way it sounds, because you've never had a commercial inspection before, maybe you don't understand the dynamics of what it entails. For me to be able to hit all of these items you're most concerned with, it is going to require me to perform those tasks. For that, my inspection fee will be. So find out their price points. Maybe they got a pain point. Maybe in this conversation, maybe they come back to you and say, well, that's a lot higher than I anticipated. I am not so much concerned about these other items. I said, great. Maybe you've got a contact or a referral source that you're already using for your roof or your HVAC or your electric, or maybe you're going to have your electrician already walk through the building for you. I'll tell you what, if I exclude that item from our inspection, then my fee will be this. Is it okay if we book the inspection for Thursday? So now I've given them an exclusion. And then I put the proposition back on when I want to do the inspection. Because the key is this sales tool should help you close more inspections because you understand your knowledge of the building. By you doing the research, you drafting your fee, you doing all that ahead of time in this roadmap, then your success down the line in the interview process will provide you with a bigger success rate. What I mean by that is, I remember it was summer of 2021. And I was, it was particularly, it was June. And we were averaging about 50 inquiries a month, 50 inquiries. And I have a success rate of 80%. So of the 50 inspections, 80% are going to book an inspection with us. So that means I've got 40 inspections. So I've got 40 inspections in 30 days. So that's one per day if you include the weekends, but it's not. So I've got about 1.5 inspections a day being performed in that month. And I'm on most of the jobs as a supervisor for my team. If not, I go to every job. So I took the month of June and decided, forget it. I am not going to call any clients back and interview them. All I'm going to do is draft a fee, and then I'm going to send out a proposal, and we're done. What ended up happening in the month of June, because what happens in June reflects to July. I went from an 80% success to under 50% success. So I lost 30% of my work because I did not take the time. I did not take the time to perform these simple steps. And those simple steps are just taking the time to call the client back. They're commercial clients. They're professionals. So when I do the interview, I don't call them back after business hours. After 5 o'clock, they're not going to get a call. They're not going to be there. Now, I will call them at 8 in the morning because most of the time, as the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the business owner, they're entrepreneurs. They're going to be there at 8 o'clock. So I'll call them at 8, but I won't call them after 5. If they call my office and I've got time to do the research before the end of day on the first day, then I'm going to exceed their expectations and call them well before the 24 hours. But if they call in the afternoon and I'm out in the field, then they're not going to get a call back until the first thing the next morning. And that's what I use as my number one sales tool is this interview process because it works and it works well. And when it works, then boom, I get to book the inspection. Booking the inspection is my favorite thing because then that means I get to go out and do the inspection. And I get to have fun and I get to grow a business and I get to meet new people. And then they're going to carry the banner of my company around going, you betcha. I'm going to tell friends that this was an excellent experience. And I grow and I grow and I grow and I grow year after year after year after year because I did it right. And I took every little step of that roadmap to get to this point. Because think about it. At 2 cents a foot, 200,000 square foot, I made $4,000. I left my house at 8. I got there at 9:30. It was a ways away. Started the inspection at 9:30. I was done at 2:30. I was back in my driveway at 4. I wrote the report and the job was out at 6. How many residential inspections do I need to do to make $4,000? And I did that in one day. Works. As part of the roadmap, right underneath the client interview is the proposal. The best way I can describe a proposal to somebody, it's a memorial of the conversation you had in the interview. Now, some inspection companies, they'll provide quotes over the phone. Some have a formal proposal process. Some only do proposals when the job is this size. Some only do proposals when the client asks for them. Some clients have never bought a commercial building, and so you want to use a proposal to help guide them through your process. Sometimes you're going to use a proposal because it's a competitive market, and the proposal is the first thing they see with your name on it. And if it's the first thing you see with your name on it, and it's awesome looking, and it's flashy, and it sparkles, and maybe that separates you from everybody else, you'll decide. Me, I do a proposal on every inspection. Whether it's a little bitty flat fee inspection I'm doing on a two-story brick converted home in the corner of my neighborhood, or a 1 million square foot shopping plaza, I do a proposal on every inspection. Because in that proposal, the very first page, and we'll try to talk about what should be in a proposal, the very first page of the proposal introduces the client to me. Do you think that you're going to get a phone call and every phone call you get is going to be from the client themselves? Sometimes it's their assistant. Sometimes it's the maintenance person. And then that proposal has to get sent up the food chain for the acceptance. Remember I talked about the house of worship. Maybe you got somebody in the congregation asking you for the inspection, then it has to go to a committee to be reviewed. So the very first page of disposal, the proposal is, hey, this is why you called me. This is the property. Here's 3 sentences about why I'm the best. The second page of my proposal, or the second element of the proposal, should be a description of the property. It's a 2-story building, accessible roof, HVAC, masonry, whatever. It's just a general description. I'm inspecting 30,000 square foot warehouse. General description. Next is the services and the scope. So in other words, you and that person on the phone set up what you want. See, what's in residential inspections, you're going to follow the track rules. And these are the items that get inspected, and this is how I write the report, and this is what we do. Great. In commercial, it's very much a la carte. Imagine walking into a library and saying, I've got this, and this, so I better grab that book, this book, and that book. And that assembles my inspection. At any point in this scope, my clients can say yes or no, and I can amend it right here. You're inspecting a refrigerated warehouse, but the refrigeration is being provided from a secondary source, so you do not have to inspect any refrigeration. Great. So then on my proposal, I'm going to say inspection of this property will exclude all refrigeration equipment. Makes it simple. Some inspectors will choose to put into their proposal all of the information from their agreement. Some will put in the limitations from their agreement. Me, I reference the ComSOP in the scope of the inspection. There are some inspections that are large enough, complex enough, that you may want to secure a retainer. Retainers are your right to take a down payment for the inspection. Me, whenever I had an inspection and I had a specialty consultant along, I always took a retainer. regardless of my inspection fee, because I want to pay that specialty consultant. Any inspection that I had that was greater than $4,000 of an inspection fee, I took a retainer. Your clients are used to that. At the time of booking, a retainer is necessary. If it's a small project, I didn't take a retainer. A one-day project, I'm not going to take a retainer. But if it's going to take multiple days, multiple inspectors, multiple subspecialty consultants, then I would consider it a retainer. I always put in my proposal the time frame. This inspection will take 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. Your report will be provided to you within 48 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours of the inspection. There's always going to be an expiry or an expiration to my proposal. Today's August. What if your fees in August are this and they don't make their decision until October? Are your fees in October going to be the same as August? I don't know. They could be more, they could be less. You'll figure that out. Maybe you're not going to be as busy. I don't know. But you get to put an expiry. My expiry was 30 days. There are inspections that I have done that come in 90 days plus after a proposal. And that gives me the right to amend and change the fee that is included on the proposal. An opportunity for you. Then lastly, there should be an acceptance to this agreement. So the proposal memorializes what was described in the interview, agreed to in the interview, and the price. What protects you in your liability is your service agreement. Those are two different documents. Proposal establishes your expectations and your service, and your agreement is what accepts and establishes that liability. So again, here's a look at a proposal. The first page is just simply, here's my client. Here's a little bit about us. Thank you for calling. Have a great day. Second, general description, 57,000 square foot. It's 45,000 square foot of warehouse. It's 12,000 square foot of office space. I've got HVAC, mechanical, plumbing. It's tilt-up construction. Here's our standard practice. Here's a link to the ComSOP. Again, it's royalty-free. You can link it to any document you want. And lastly, here's page 3. Here's my fee, $7,825 for this 1 day's worth of inspection on this 57,000 square foot office and warehouse space. It's valid for 30 days. Please sign here. Once this is signed, return to me. Guess what I get to do? Book the inspection. My favorite thing. When I talked about the agreement, that's something completely different. To the question that was asked earlier, this agreement looks very similar to what you've seen supplied on InterNACHI's resources, except for in here, we talk about the ComSOP and versus the InterNACHI standards of practice. But the key is we want to make sure that we have all of the information and everything that we need. And then at the end of the day, a spot for our clients to sign it and return it. Just like doing residential inspections, I won't start an inspection until I've got a signed agreement. This is why it's critical that we know who the person is that is the stakeholder for this inspection. We can have junior people calling us, but I like to get in front of the stakeholder because those are the decision makers. Those are the people that are going to sign this agreement. One of the reasons why I take all of the information that's in this agreement and place it into my proposal is, in theory, if they signed my proposal that included the elements of the agreement, they've also signed my agreement simultaneously. I will still send them an agreement they need to sign. But if I'm having troubles getting that back from the stakeholder, at least I have motions to move forward. I'm not going to release my report until this is formally signed. But I will have had my acceptance of my proposal, which included my agreement, simultaneously. It works both ways. Rule number one, obviously, never begin a project without a written agreement. This should be clear, perfectly outlined, and establish all limitations, exceptions, and exclusions. It should also contain your price as well. Always contain your price. And so you should always make sure that you have a good proposal and a good agreement. Then you get to do your favorite thing, the inspection. And when we're done with the inspection, we get to write a report. Once again, within the ComSOP, we do not mandate a specific reporting system style. I mean, theoretically, you could use a simple document that you create in a word processor, but your report should include, or you could use an aftermarket reporting system done by one of the large producers of inspection reports in the country. The key is it better be commercially driven. We'll get to that. Your report should include limitations, expectations, and exclusions. You should write it and have included in the ethics, your inspection agreement, and then within the report, a request for persons with knowledge. I will put that in my report because in my proposal, a lot of times I'll ask for them. I never get it. But if I ask for it, didn't get it, then in my report I can say, asked for it, never received it. Then I'm not responsible in writing for any documents. I can also put in my inspection report, nobody was present at the time of the inspection, and therefore I was not aware of any documents or able to discuss anything with any persons of knowledge. Both of those work very well. You should have a good inspection agreement. Once again, ask for documents from people. Have a good walkthrough agreement, because we have not only the walkthrough survey, but there's also a walkthrough agreement, which is an abbreviated inspection. You could also do an inspection report of an oversight, like you could go out there and do project management, thermal imaging. We have agreements out there for accessibility. When somebody brings up the term ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, that's an act. And it's huge and it's all encompassing, and it creates the need for certain accessibility requirements. The physical inspection is not called an ADA inspection. It's called an accessibility inspection. And within the ComSOP, section 15, we actually have a complete standard available to use to inspect for accessibility. So that's an awesome ancillary service or a standard service you add to your inspection at a fee. We have a green features inspection, a fire door inspection. I don't know if you're familiar with fire doors, but there are buildings in this country that require annual fire door inspections. That's section 17 of the ComSOP. We have a fireplace and chimney inspection procedure, as well as a radon mitigation procedure for commercial buildings. So all of these are different agreements that we have available on our website for you to use. But when regardless of your agreement or your inspection, when you're writing the report, follow the ComSOP. That's what section 6 is there, and that's what it's all about. Be clear. Don't use jargon. You got that plumbing. And your plumbing's all Schedule 40 and Schedule 80 PVC, and it's white. But then there's that black fitting with the pipe clamps and the rubber fitting, and it goes between the two pipes. Everybody on the call is yelling at me, going, "Fernco, it's a Fernco." No, it's not. It's a pipe coupling. Fernco is a jargon. Pipe coupling is a term. It's not Kleenex. It's facial tissue. So don't use jargon. I laugh because commercial inspection reports are so much easier to write than residential. In residential, you've got to sit back and let's pick a Federal Pacific electric panel. You gotta tell the client you've got a Federal Pacific electric panel, period. And then give them 17 paragraphs of why Federal Pacific panels are bad. In a commercial, I say there is a Federal Pacific electric panel, period. Federal Pacific electric panels can catch on fire, period. Recommend replacement of these panels as directed by your electrician, period. And I'm done. So we like to describe the DID method, the DDID. Describe the component, state the defect, talk about the implication, and then direct the client to a course of action. It's a simple inspection report. You don't have to sit there and give your clients the great history novel. We're residential inspectors, you have to. In commercial, we're dealing with intelligent business owners, and those intelligent business owners know the difference between good and bad. And that's where our benefit is. I'll give you a great example in the reporting system that I've used for the last 15 years. My standard residential inspection report on a typical 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-story home was 75 pages long. My standard commercial building on a 35,000 square foot commercial building was 45 pages long. 30-page difference for a building that's 7 times bigger. Why? Because I didn't have to give the history of the world in a single narrative. So one of the ways we can avoid any risk and enjoying risk management are just doing 5 simple things. I avoid all causation, period, done. There's a crack in the back wall, done. It's the facts, period. There's a crack, let you know. Have a good day. I don't talk about solutions. There's a crack. I'm not going to say, fill the crack. Your client's going to figure it out. I don't have to say codes. I use every 4-letter word in the universe, but that's the one word I don't use. I don't say the word code ever, because that's not what we do. You can say standard if you want to. You can say not standard anymore if you want to, but we don't have to recite codes. We also don't have to recite life expectancies, because just because it's old doesn't mean it's bad. But what if it's old, we should set the expectations to our clients that they'll probably have to replace it. What I mean by that is, if I'm inspecting the heating system and the statistical life of this heating system is 25 years, and I see it's 35 years old, I'm going to go to my client and say, your heating system functioned, but it is 35 years old. Anticipate replacement, period. That's it. That's all I'm letting them know. And I don't have to deal with the replacement costs. Now I can do replacement costs, but they're not part of the standard inspection. I only do replacement costs on those inspections that my clients asked for it and are paying for that service. That becomes an ancillary fee. My report content's pretty simple. It's the description. It begins with the description, occupancy status. It's vacant, it's occupied. Who was there? Everybody gets credit, whoever was there. And then my inspections all have to have a summary. They have to have a summary because most likely your client, especially that CEO or CFO or COO, they don't want to read 45 pages. They want to read one page of the big facts. So there's always going to be a report summary. A lot of inspectors will begin their report writing careers using residential templates. But I'll tell you, the pitfall with that, if any point in your inspection the word home or residence is said, your client's going to feel shorted. It's a building, it's a property, it's a commercial property, but it's not a home. So if you were to write a report using your home inspector's template, you're probably going to run into some troubles with your clients because they're not going to be happy. At the end of the report, I usually add the cost to cure if they ask for it or paid for it, my limitations, exceptions, and exclusions on that particular project. In other words, I was supposed to do this whole building, but there were 7 locked offices. I couldn't go into them. I'm going to put that in that limitations area. I was supposed to climb the roof. I couldn't get on there because they locked the access. I was supposed to operate all of the heating units, but of the 30 on this roof, 20 of them were off. I'm not turning them on. So that I'm going to put that on there. If I had experts with me, I don't care if they wrote their inspection report on a bar napkin, that's going to be placed in my report as a PDF, but I will probably have to summarize it for my clients. But no matter what they look like, I will do that. Ancillary inspections. If I did accessibility, if I did fire door inspections, each of those reports would be a pool inspection, a radon mitigation inspection, a cost to cure inspection, which we talked about earlier. Any of them could be an ancillary report that I would attach to my primary report. If we did any environmental testing, and there could be a whole litany of all the environmentals that you could have in a building, I would include those. Now, those reports I never summarize. I will say see addendum or appendix blank for the lead inspection. See appendix or addendum blank for the mold report, because I do not summarize any environmental at all. That inspection of the 57,000 square foot warehouse that was $7,800 plus that we showed on that proposal, I took 645 photos during that inspection. I probably included about 100 photos in my report. So what do I do with the rest of those photos? Well, I know some inspectors will actually add a supplemental photos addendum and just add more photos to give more credence to what they did. That's up to you, but I do know that sometimes is a part. If you did any other research, the questionnaires, the interviews, any prior inspections, that's a part. And then lastly, if I needed to provide an invoice for this inspection, whether paid or to be paid, then that becomes the end of my report, is the invoice. By having the invoice at the end, that ensures they had to read the entire report before they got to it. And then there's the inspection. When I speak about the invoice, we're not dealing with moms and dads buying a residence where you're going to expect a check or a credit card before or immediately after that inspection. On some commercial inspections, you might need to be prepared to give them 20 or 30 days to pay, especially those projects that maybe the bookkeeper, the treasurer, the controller has to have your invoice. Now, on my proposal, I will state that the report will only be distributed upon complete payment of the inspection. You're going to have to make a business decision on how deeply and frequently you enforce that, probably based on the client, probably based on the job. If I'm dealing with a Fortune Fortune 500 company or a larger entity, maybe I got to float them a little longer than if I would if I was dealing with Rob's Brake Shop. Rob's Brake Shop, he's going to probably bring you a check. Or Sarah's Salon, she's probably going to bring you a check or pay with their credit card. But when I'm dealing with these larger properties, then I probably need to be flexible. And that flexibility, you might not think about it, is marketing. That flexibility is probably the reason why you ask for the retainer. So that at minimum, you got a little bit of something at the beginning and you'll get the rest of it a little later. When it comes time to do the inspection, which is, again, after I book it, I get to do it. One of the neatest and best tools that I think an inspector has in their tool belt is the preliminary walkthrough. That preliminary walkthrough is that time that the inspector has that they can walk through the property. Now, if you've sat through any of my classes before, I'm a stickler for time. What I mean by that is our inspection started at 9 o'clock. That doesn't mean I show up at 8 and start the inspection. My client expects me at 9 o'clock. So I don't start until 9, regardless of what time I get there. But what I do between like 8:45 and 9 or 8:30 and 9, I'm going to do a preliminary walkthrough. I'm not inspecting. I'm just kind of moseying around. I'm getting a look. I might let whoever's in the building know that I'm the inspector. I'm going to be here. I just want to let you know who I am so you don't think that I'm some troublemaker looking through the window or whatever. Because it's my time to familiarize myself with the property and get to look at any individual issues. When I do that, I get to look for water entry. I get to look at all those things. I'm going to walk my team through this. Okay, you're in charge of this, and you're in charge of this, and you're in charge of this. I'm going to walk my clients. Because see, my client's not going to stick around for 6 hours of inspection, but they might stick around for 45 minutes of this. And if all they got to do is ask me 3 or 4 questions and go, whoa, you got this. I can't wait to see your report. So that preliminary walkthrough is just one heck of a tool for you. When I do my field work, I take a lot of photos. I probably take, like I say, more photos by 10 or 6 than I'll ever use. I take videos, especially if I'm trying to describe a noise or if I've got the ability to put video into my report. We've created a lot of checklists that you can use. These checklists, for every type of HVAC system, how to look at an electric panel, all roofing systems. All of these checklists are available at the CCPIA.org website that you can use so that when you come to that method, maybe I got to open up my iPad or open up my phone, grab that checklist, especially at the very beginning, to make sure that I've looked at this component of the building in its entirety. Maybe I built a software on whatever software platform I love that provides those tools for that consistency and that efficiency. So all of that becomes a fabulous opportunity for me to make sure that I'm only there once. I don't have to go back. Because going back, I lose money on. And my key is, no matter what I use, I'm trying to be efficient. I'm trying to be efficient in my time so that I can be the most profitable and be ready to work on the next job, because that's what I'm trying to do. When I'm done with my inspection, if I've got specialty consultants, experts along, I'm going to go talk to them. Are you finished? You're not finished? Do you want me to wait? So another hour? Sure, I can help you with that. What can I do to help you? or no, it's going to be another 3 more days because what they have to do is pretty complex. Well, I'll make arrangements to allow you to stay longer and come back tomorrow or whatever. So I check in with my experts. When I talked about that high school that I did with 9 inspectors, we met all at the back of the tailgate of the truck at 9 o'clock. I made the assignments. We all came back at lunch. We had a safety meeting in the morning. We all came back at lunch. So how are you? How are you? How are you? Okay, so you're done. Good. I need you to go help over here. Oh, you're not done. You need help. So who can help? And we divide up that team so that when we're done, then we all get back together again and make sure that I's dotted, T's crossed. And we're staying as efficient and effective as possible so nobody leaves without anybody else knowing. If I'm working alone, I always do one more walkthrough through the entire building. I kind of make it a habit. It's my own little trick. When let's say it's a vacant building. When I go into the building on my preliminary walkthrough, I turn the lights on. So as I vacate each individual space, I turn those lights off. So that when I'm done with this building, I take one more lap through, and if I find lights are still on, then that's probably a spot I missed. If I walked around that parking area clockwise, then maybe I'm going to go walk that parking area counterclockwise one more time. Because I'll tell you, I guarantee all these people, all you people on the call that wants to get into commercial inspections, don't forget your smartwatch because you will get your points. Commercial inspections involve exercise. You got stairs, you got ladders, permanently installed, of course, and you've got all of that. Then lastly, if you're working with teams, find out when you're going to receive their portions of the inspection report so that you have an expectation of when the whole thing is going to be able to be assembled and distributed to your client. If you knew that your specialty consultant, your expert, wasn't going to get you their report for another 4 days, and you promised your client a report in 48 hours, you want to let that client know so they're not sitting there going tick-tock, tick-tock. Now they're angry at you, which makes their expectation of you drop. You can't over-communicate the importance of being timely. So that's the inspection. That's all of those steps. But I think we need to talk a little bit about sales and marketing. I think that's what really separates that introductory into the commercial property inspections is the difference in the sales and marketing. They're two different animals, and they might even use two different muscles to do sales in. But before you really start, you got to ask yourself, how much time am I going to devote to this? There are a lot of commercial inspectors that do very well, and they treat it as an ancillary business. And I do commercial. And they don't make it a focus, which is great. But they're going to be the best at it. There are some that say, I am going to do commercial so vigorously, I'm starting a new company. Great. There are some that will set up duals where it becomes just a subset of your primary company that you're going to devote a ton of business to and a ton of effort to. And then there are some that might be even on this call that don't even do home inspections, that will do commercial only. Then you got to stand back and look at how much opportunity there is in your area. Because again, your opportunity does not have a boundary. You can stretch your boundary wider because of the commercial opportunities, have a higher fee structure, which means I can absorb that 100-mile drive or that 200-mile drive because I'll get paid more anyway. Then how much am I willing to devote my time as well as money? What's my long-term focus and goal? And then lastly, does my branding work for adding commercial to my existing business? So again, you can expand your scope with a new division, an ancillary service, a standalone company, especially, or for those first-time business owners, a great new viable inspection company. So as I had a question, but it wasn't a question. So as I look at these two examples here, as you expand your scope from your current business or standalone company, how's your branding? I have Emerald Valley Home Inspections. Great. It's a good company, great logo, InterNACHI certified, awesome. But it really doesn't say commercial, does it? Doesn't say building or property, does it? So in this particular case, if I was a commercial client out looking for an inspector, Emerald Valley Home Inspections, LLC, doesn't really show my confidence. I've got Grounded Home Inspections. Well, grounded's good. That doesn't bother me. I like that. I mean, they probably know a little bit about electric, but it's home inspections. And so that branding, once again, doesn't really provide that oomph or confidence that a commercial client might be looking for. But I look at above and beyond, residential and commercial. Okay, now I'm getting closer. Residential and commercial. So that means if I'm out there, well, I'd be comfortable with that. They're a pretty well-rounded company. Residential and commercial, they'd probably do it all. But then there's Titan. Titan Property Inspections. Titan is a strong name and it just says property. So I might not know what the property they're good at is, but if they had commercial on their website, I'm going to be comfortable enough to give them a chance. Titan is if you listen to the logo creators, is a good, bold statement. But then there's Landmark, Commercial Property Inspections, CCPIA certified. Landmark, it's bold, it stands up, it's got a great color, and it just says they do commercial property inspections. That works. By saying something like that, that commercial client's looking for that. Now, they're probably not going to have a lot of confidence in residential, but they're going to have all the confidence in the world at commercial. Same with Arizona commercial property inspections, I should say. That is, again, saying we do commercial. We don't do residential, we do commercial. So then if I've got my branding in good shape for my name, what about my website? So I've got up here, and it depends on who you love, whether you love Batman, then it'd be Falcone, or whether it's Falcone here. Property inspections. Well, that makes sense. Property inspections. I can click here and probably find that I do commercial. But what's right here on the front of this web page? I've got a residence right there. That residence, clear as day. So that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence that they do commercial inspections. So that's something I need to consider as I'm working through here. Is I need to consider myself, does my current branding and does my current collateral meet my goals? If I look at this company, the Brick Kicker, it says residential, it says commercial, it says environmental, it says residential in its own banner, it says commercial in its own banner, and it says environmental in its own banner. So all of that is giving my clients looking for me, if this was my website, the confidence that they do those items. And if I click on any one of those banners or any one of those drop downs, then I can instantly see that their confidence in that subject is parallel or aligned to my needs. So that allows us to have, a dual website of both residential and commercial and have focus. Whereas this website is 100% only dedicated to commercial, because this inspector set up an only dedicated to commercial brand. So we've got the brand that stands alone commercial, the brand that hides their commercial behind residential, and the brand that duals both residential and commercial in the same collateral, allowing the clients to find you. I hope that makes sense. So as we're building our websites and building all of our marketing collateral, we need to determine really what our service area is. Am I looking at only where I live, the metro area adjacent, certain business parts, certain satellite cities that are around me? You get to build whatever you want to build to whatever size you want. Maybe you only do certain types of properties. As I said earlier, I have really good commercial inspector friends that only do multifamily. They don't want to do any other type of commercial property because that's outside of their comfort zone. Maybe you don't want to build such a vast empire. Maybe you have only specific goals. So maybe you're not going to put too much into it, which would include, your breadth in your website. What's your current capacity? What's your current capabilities? So this leads us into, what do you want to look like? See, moving into commercial, if you're, and I can't see faces and I don't see names, which is good. What if you're a residential inspector right now that can wake up in the morning on January 1st and be able to write down on a piece of paper a number? And that's your prediction of the number of inspections you're going to perform this year. And year after year after year, you could predict that number within 10 inspections. That probably means that your residential inspection company is on cruise control and probably doesn't need a whole lot of oomph. If you wanted to get into commercial, you could bring in somebody as either a contractor or an employee and have them do residential for you while you build commercial and increase your business. That's what I'm saying about capacity. If you're looking to be able to utilize more inspections in a week, then maybe commercial offsets those days that you're not totally utilized. It's not an instant, you can't flip a switch, but it's getting close. And then lastly, understanding who those referral players are in your market. Are they realtors? Are they chambers of commerce? Are they leads groups? Are they, I don't know. But all of these referral players are your opportunities. But one of the best opportunities you have, it used to be called Google My Business. Now it's called Google Business Profile. And if you're building a commercial footprint in the year, your commercial footprint should begin here. So what Google My Business or the Google Business Profile is, it's specifically what Google thinks you do and what Google recognizes the search to be to find you. So when I look at Northern Home and Commercial Inspections, their name is fine. But Google thinks he's a home inspector in Tecumseh, Ontario, Canada. While his name might say commercial, he's not going to be found on the organic search for a commercial inspector in Tecumseh, Ontario. But if I look at Duke City Inspections, which is a perfectly good generic name for I do inspections, they physically list themselves as a commercial real estate inspector in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So the organic search says commercial Albuquerque. When somebody organically searches, that's free. You're not paying for ads. You're not paying for clicks. That somebody found you because you were properly listed. That's really important. So I'm going to close off the rest of this session with talking about systems that we're going to probably run into. Then I'll open up for some questions and maybe answers as we go. We talked about the big three way at the beginning of this session at 6 o'clock. The big three are the roof, HVAC, and parking area. So we're going to see roofs. We are only required per the ComSOP to walk low sloped roofs and to only walk roofs with a permanent means of access. So if there's no ladder, I don't have to go up on this roof. And so I could have a modified bitumen roof. I could have metal roofs. I could even have TPO, PVC, or any single ply roof. So these are our most typical roofs that we'll find and deficiencies thereof. I'm also going to find plumbing systems. We are required to identify plumbing systems. We'll have supply, drain waste vent, suppression systems for fire, and all the fixtures in the restrooms. But the one thing that we need to have in every commercial building would be backflow prevention. So identifying the main water disconnect as it comes in the building, and then its backflow prevention is part of the ComSOP. And that backflow prevention prevents any issues that develop in the building from migrating back into the municipal water supply. So if they're a paint mixing company or a lithium ion battery company, we need to isolate their water so that if they've got a contamination that gets into the water system, it stops before it goes into the entire municipality. So we're going to see plumbing for sure. We'll see electric. We'll see single phase. We'll see three phase. We might see standard 200 amp panels. We might see 6,000 amp systems. We might see a building that might have multiple panels. I think the largest building I ever did was 75 or 80 panels in one building. But these panels aren't like those panels that you're used to seeing in a residential inspection. These panels, as you can see in this image here, they don't even look the same. While you might look at the panel that I'm highlighting here and identify it to be, oh yeah, it looks like I can take that off in 6 screws, kind of like playing Name That Tune. I can take that panel off in 6 screws. Well, that dead front cover is not those 6 screws. Those 6 screws only take the panel cover off. Behind that panel cover is the dead front cover with another 8 screws or 6 screws. That panel cover probably weighs 35 or 40 pounds. There is no expectation or requirement in the ComSOP that states you are to remove panel boards. So our inspection of this system is basically looking at each of these 5 panel boards, as well as the 2 transformers that are stepping down the electricity to those, as well as the gutterway that is above it. All of those are parts of the commercial inspection on a visual nature and not a dismantling. So for those inspectors that are having trepidations over size of these systems, I can assure you this is a visual natured inspection. We'll have structure. whether it's masonry or tilt-up panels, steel, wood. We'll have traditional frame roofs, truss roofs, both steel and wood, concrete precast roofs. The whole idea is identifying plumb, level, square, and straight. Understanding the relationships in the structure will help you compile any visual analysis on any building. But when we're looking at our structure, like this giant tilt-up structure that we have, it really has the same principles. That wall is built plumb. That wall is built straight. It's placed on a level base. All of the structure from the roof migrates itself down to the foundation. These are all principles of inspections that most of us all are familiar with. We'll also have HVAC. We can have something as complex as a large boiler system, something as remedial and easy as a hanging forced air gas furnace or electric furnace as we have in the top right, or we can have a package unit. And a package unit located on the roof is called a rooftop unit. But we can have a package unit that has the air conditioning and the heating assembled in one complete package. So our HVAC, again, one of the three most expensive items in a building, are items that we're going to visually inspect. So earlier I was asked a question. This is just a partial list of the courses we have available. The Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association has been around since 2019. Our course content is fresh by means of it's all newly produced. It's all into the current standards and the current compliances. And so it's not as vast a library as InterNACHI has, but InterNACHI is 30 years old. And so they've had a lot of time spent before us. We have a standards of practice course, a code of ethics course. We have a report writing course, a determining fees and proposals, an HVAC course, low slope roof course, fixed ladder, commercial kitchens course, structure evaluation, accessibility, indoor air quality. We have a course on transitioning between residential and commercial, a life safety inspections course, a fire door course. Now over on the right, I've got two logos I wanted to share with you. The bottom logo you've seen in every slide is our member logo. The member logo is saying that you're a member of the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association. And any proper dues paying member gets to use that logo. But the logo that's in red is for the Certified Commercial Property Inspector. So that's the next layer above membership. And to be able to use that logo and espouse that to your clients, that means you've completed 4 tasks. The first task will be you're a member of the association. Your second task, you've completed the standards of practice and code of ethics exam, as well as taken the code of ethics courses and taking the exam to follow. And the fourth being you've passed our inspection competency exam, which is a lot like the exam that InterNACHI uses on the residential side. And it's a basic knowledge exam. So if you complete those 4 items, then you are now a CCPIA certified commercial property inspector. So it holds a little bit more provenance in your marketing and your efforts. I'd like to share, before I open to questions, we will have a complete track during the InterNACHI Professional Inspectors Convention Orlando this year until October 10th, 11th, and 12th. I will have 6 different commercial sections going on simultaneously, or not simultaneously, incongruent with the conference. We will have a multifamily, an environmental. We will have building a multi-inspector firm. We'll have the first 5 steps to getting started, as well as a fire door. And then lastly, I'm going to have an infrared course strictly for commercial inspections. So those 6 courses will be offered during that convention. I'll also be in Houston in January for the 2021-22, providing a complete introduction to commercial inspections 3-day course, which will follow through the ComSOP as well as technical aspects of the inspection. That course is approved by TREC and offered for continuing education. We'll be in other places around the country, but that is my Texas visit right now. Our full schedule is available at ccpia.org. Now it's time. I'll bring this out to the world. What do you do next? Take our online courses. Join. Attend live classes. Go to the workshops during the InterNACHI Pro Convention just to see if it's something you like. Every month for free, members or non-members, we don't discriminate. We do a monthly Zoom call on the second Tuesday of every month, early in the morning. And that you can ask questions, you can get mentored, you can do that. It's a very open, free call. Or going ride-alongs. There might be somebody in your sphere group that will take you along and let you see what it looks like, see if it's something you like to do. Because at the end of the day, the more great commercial inspections being performed, the higher we're going to increase our knowledge in the industry, which means more and more commercial inspections are being performed by good inspectors like yourselves, and not necessarily the large due diligence firms that treat it like a packing house and are doing it strictly for profit and large profits versus the intelligent, good inspector. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions that might be here.
Okay, Rob, I don't see any questions posted here.
I don't either. I don't have a watch on either, so I'm not sure what time it is.
Oh, you went over the time, but I'm sure everybody has been enjoying it and commenting how great the class has been and how informative. So you've done an outstanding job, and we certainly appreciate you being able to come on and do this webinar for us. Most grateful, and I look forward to you being in Houston in January.
Yes, swing by.
So thanks again, Rob, and we'll get a copy of all these things for everybody's classes, their continued ed for them, and we'll get those things posted for everyone. But thanks again, Rob, and I appreciate you doing it. Appreciate all the information. Great class, outstanding, and we'd love to have you again sometime.
Thanks, Paul. Sorry I went over.
No apologies necessary, man. Great information. Good presentation. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Appreciate AJ helping us out on the webinar tonight. So you guys take care, and we'll go ahead and end the meeting.
Thank you.